Today on Studio Dave, I'm going to be doing toy photography with actual smoke. Should be fun. Hey folks, Dave here. I am shooting outside today because I'm going to be using some practical smoke effects and I just need the ventilation. Plus it's a nice day, so hey, why not shoot outside for the day? What I'm going to be shooting is a 3.0 Hulkbuster. That is a Hulkbuster from 3.0 Studios. I've been waiting for this Hulkbuster for quite some time. I actually pre-ordered it really early in the pandemic and I finally arrived about 18 months after it was actually supposed to, and it's finally here. So now that it's here, I'm going to take it through its paces and see if it was worth the wait. So to get the creative juices flowing, I went online and looked for some Hulkbuster images just to see what other people have done with them. And I came across this image right here. So that shot's just Hulkbuster looking badass in a pile of smoke. And I figured I'd try to recreate that shot because, you know, I like Hulkbusters looking badass in a pile of smoke. So I figured I'd like to go outside and actually shoot it practically instead of doing the smoke in post like I sometimes do. I tried to pull something out of my bag of tricks and pulled out the old bee smoker. So using a bee smoker for toy photography was an idea that actually came across at work. They have a bunch of bees there, and I have volunteered to help take care of the bees, just to learn about how to take care of bees. So while I was doing that, they had an expert there that was showing us how to take care of bees, and they had this bee smoker. And when I saw it run for the first time, I thought, hey, look, that looks like a toy scale smoke machine. And which is actually really hard to come by. Either they're way too big or way too small, and the ones that are the right size are frickin' expensive, like hundreds of dollars. This cost 20 bucks on Amazon. Let's take a look at this setup here. So the first thing is I have this camera set up on a Extreme Platypod. The Extreme Platypod's my new favorite toy. Pointing towards the Hulkbuster against a black-gray screen. Most of the focus I want to be on the smoke and the Hulkbuster itself, not on the background. So blank screen means less clutter in the background, less distractions. I have this light here set up on a C-stand. So this light here is just to add a bit of extra highlights on the Hulkbuster. So if you look, if the light is on, light is off, light is on. Just one of those little things that kind of just adds a little bit of spice to an image. I also have attached to my camera this LCD screen, and the reason why is that I will be moving around in here with the smoke machine and the camera is over there. I don't want to jump it back and forth to the camera and back and forth and back and forth and see what I'm shooting, so I decided to set up this LCD panel so I could see what I was doing. So another thing to add to the fact that I'm not behind the camera is this remote trigger right here, and that will allow me to be out here and still trigger the camera and get the shots I need. So I'm actually going to be taking a whole lot of photos here, and the reason why is that you can't really control where the smoke goes. Once the smoke leaves the smoke machine, it's at the whim of the wind, it's at the wind of the air, it's at the wind of eddy currents. You don't know how it's going to curl or how it's going to collect or any of those factors. And because this is a still image, I want to make sure the smoke is in exactly the right spot when I want it. So I'm going to be taking a whole bunch of photos with the idea is that sometimes the smoke's going to be great on this part, it's going to be sucky on that part, and the next shot it might be better on that part, but sucky on this part. If I take a whole bunch of photos, I can cover all of my bases for where all the smoke's going to be, and then take the best of the smoke from each of those shots and combine them in Photoshop later on so I get all the right smoke and all the right places, which is really what I'm going for. So I'm going to jump in here, light my smoke machine, and start taking photos. Okay, let's cover how to actually light one of these things. Before we start, I got to emphasize the fact that there will be burning things in this unit, and it's going to get really, really hot. So don't try this unless you're an adult or have adult supervision. Also, right behind me, I have a garden hose that's ready to go in case there's some sort of accident. And I'm going to be shooting on my concrete patio. So there's a really low chance that anything is going to go wrong fire-wise. But if it does, I'm ready to put things out at a moment's notice. But this thing will get hot. There are a couple places that you should not touch. The bellows here is basically where you grab it, and this little handle here stays cool, so you can use that to open and close it once you start lighting it. So like I said, there's actual fire going to be in here. It's going to get hot, so use all the caution. And I wouldn't say don't try this at home, because I'm trying this at home, but definitely do not try this unless you really know what you're doing and have proper adult supervision. I include in that some of you adults. Basically to light one of these things, you need something to start a fire and then something to keep it going that produces a lot of smoke. So to start the fire, I'm just using dryer lint, so it's all nice and recycled. For burning things, typically I like to use dead leaves, especially around the fall. Dead leaves, pine needles, those smoke really well. It's summer here and my lawn's picked up, so I don't have a lot of dead leaves. But luckily, a couple days ago, there's a storm, so I have these leaves from my local tree that fell off during the storm, so I'll be able to use these and stick them in there to light it on fire. And then for a little bit of extra fuel, I also burn cloth, and this cloth here is just cloth. My wife is a quilter, so these are just all the cast-offs that are going to get chucked out. So I'm going to be using this to create more smoke. At the same time, if you don't happen to have a wife who's a quilter, you should get one. They're very handy, but if you don't have one, use an old t-shirt, use an old sock, something along those lines, old rags, but if you're using old rags, make sure they're not covered in oil. So old towels, anything like that, just something that's kind of cottony and will kind of burn and smolder. What you're really looking for here is not stuff that burns, but stuff that smolders. Grab a lighting stick, and then reach in there and light that dryer lint. The dryer lint catches really well, so just light that. And then once you got a fire going, pump the bellows. Just pump it a bunch of times until you get the smoke going. You want to let it go for a few minutes so you start getting some nice heat build up in there. And then once you got the smoke, you can close it, and then you got yourself a bee smoker. So all that's left now is to start taking some photos. So let's go jump into that. I think I got all the shots that I need, so I'm going to go inside and start merging things together in Photoshop. Let's jump in over there. All right, so I'm in my studio and I'm starting to go through all the images. Like I mentioned, I took over 200 images. And as you can see, the smoke has ended up in a wide variety of places, and it gave me a lot of candidates to work with. But I needed to whittle that down to something manageable. So I selected my favorite bits of smoke by selecting pictures that had smoke in various different places, and I pre-processed some of them by cropping them and then adding some color grading, and then I exported all of them into Photoshop. So in Photoshop, I started merging all of the layers together, picking the bits of smoke that I liked for each section, and using a combination of layer masks and blend modes. And I kept on merging everything together until I got the image that I was looking for. And once I had all the smoke in place, I did some basic color correcting, adding a few textures and adding in the arc reactor lights, and I ended up with this final image here. So at this point, I think the image is actually looking pretty good, but I realized that the blank wall outside that I was kind of hoping to just be blurred out and left blank is actually looking like a brick wall in my image, and that's not really visually appealing. It doesn't match my vision for this image, so I need to fix it. So the problem spots are right here, 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 and here. So what I'm going to do is add a different background into those areas, and the way I'm going to do that is by downloading an asset from a website called Pixel Squid, which is a subscription service where you can get 3D images that are available for your use to use in your various bits of artwork. So I went over to pixelsquid.com and typed in ruined buildings and picked one of the models that I liked. And then I grabbed the view that I wanted and then downloaded a PNG file of it. I then dragged that PNG file into Photoshop, did some resizing to make sure it was the right size for the background, and then merged it into those places that were looking like bricks in the background. And then I was left with this final image. So I think this whole experience worked out pretty well. Playing with the bee smoker actually worked out better than I expected. It put out a lot of smoke and it was really cheap to do so. And then the image itself, even though I had that issue with the background, was able to overcome it, and I came up with an image that I'm really quite pleased with. So I'm going to call that done. So thank you very much for watching. If you like what you see here, please hit that subscribe button. I'll leave you with a final image before I go, but until then, I'll see you next time. Cheers.